I'm here with Carly Cottam, founder and CEO at Motive. Great to see you.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Now, you're a well-known figure in the property development community here in Brisbane, also down on the Gold Coast. Do you want to share a bit about your story in the property development market? We obviously met both at a previous life about 10 years ago. Can you tell us about your journey so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So Motive Group, we're established here in Brisbane. We also have an office, essentially a satellite office on the Gold Coast, got a number of projects down there. But we started 4 years ago now and had some great successes during that time. We saw a gap in the market, and my previous experience when we met, I was working with a developer and had a lot of experience working in-house with development teams and also then agency side. So I suppose the true challenge developers were facing was whether or not they use an external agency and perhaps lose some control and focus from their sales team, or having an in-house sales team where they have ultimate control. Essentially, there's pros and cons to that scenario, and we wanted to offer that service to developers where they still felt like they had their own internal sales team, but a team that has exposure to other projects in the market from bigger perspective, I suppose.
And for the consumer, what does that mean? Because I suppose because you're not just working with one developer, you've probably got a broader view.
Yes.
And that's certainly of benefit to the consumer.
Absolutely. Benefit to the consumer, but also a developer. And I suppose if you've got a team that is working amongst or abreast of multiple projects or have been on multiple projects, they don't have essentially their blinkers on, which sometimes developers or their teams in-house will have their blinkers on as far as what they're selling and what their product is. But it's essentially just industry knowledge.
So I think, it's more, information is more accessible for consumers than ever before. I think if any developer is of the view that consumers aren't going to kind of compare the two, they're incorrect on that.
Absolutely.
It's easy to find that information. And I think to your point about, one of the advantages of having a really effective external partner like yourself is that you kind of have a view of what's the competition doing, how does this project stack, and then what do buyers actually care about.
Yeah. And I think it's an unbiased opinion as well. We aren't as emotionally attached. We're going to give real life feedback in regards to the product type and the demographic that we're targeting. And that's essentially what will ensure that your project has ultimate success in market. And your point to the consumer doing the research, it is so profound now. Consumers are so educated on the development space and the real estate space. Everyone, your neighbour, your cousin, your brother, think that they know everything about real estate and property, and it is a conversation that they have around the dinner table. So being abreast of how you're being positioned in market, but also then develop a brand credibility construction team is so important at the moment.
And I think one of the things you're well known for is that kind of higher end market, luxury stock, more expensive stuff. Do you want to talk a bit about why that's kind of a natural fit for Motive, and then what some things that you kind of do that would be different to, a lower end development?
I think where we position ourselves in the market, that we want to align ourselves with developers that are brand aware or want to be brand aware. And we know the importance of ensuring that their corporate brand and positioning is obviously integral in today's market. So we put a lot of time and effort up front to ensure that their brand is at the forefront rather than us as an agency. So because the consumer does their research initially on them.
So who are some of the developers you're working with?
We're working with a number of developers here in Brisbane. I suppose one of the main ones in the limelight at the moment is Greyer, a boutique developer here. We've done a number of projects for them in New Farm. We just finished a project for them in Bulimba with 100% settlement success rate. On the Gold Coast, we have a number of clients down there, whether it be development managers, Holycell Group, who we're doing quite a large project for them down in Broadbeach. The Rochester, we've got, another boutique developer similar to Greyer on Surf Parade called Solar that we've just launched. And then, we've worked with similar brands like Gurner and Consolidated where we met previously.
So what would your advice be to someone looking to buy off the plan?
Do your due diligence would be the main thing. And everyone is, and our sales team need to be aware that any buyer that comes our way, inquires on any of our projects, is doing their due diligence. They would have Googled the developer before they've even come through the door at our sales display suite. But then ensuring that when you are moving forward to transacting on an off-the-plan property, having your key consultants around you. So a good off-the-plan property lawyer, but then also a financial broker as well. And they're people that our team will ensure our buyers are partnered with throughout the journey.
One of the things that the best project marketers do is working with developers very early in the process. Do you want to tell us a bit about How do those early conversations go, and how do you guide the developer to make sure that when the project launches, it starts well?
Yeah, that'd probably be a key requirement of ours to ensure that we are engaged early, but then, ensuring that we have an initial workshop with the client, and that's just not with the developer, but also their design team, maybe the creative team, maybe the media agency, if they've been appointed as well. But those key questions up front will obviously be around the site context, what we can actually provide on the site, and then whereabouts we're located, obviously, and what demographic we need to be targeting. But from a sales perspective, we need to understand buildability. Obviously, then it's saleability. And then how is the project actually going to be funded? So depending on what their term sheet with funding will then determine what our sales strategy is. So can they start construction without pre-sales, or do they need a certain quantum of pre-sales? And that's essentially will then determine a product mix to ensure that sales velocity can meet certain targets, but then the sales and marketing strategy throughout the campaign.
One of the great things about Queensland's obviously got the Olympics coming up. There's a lot of great stuff, new hospitals being built. The downside of that is that it is harder to get a builder in Queensland relative to the other states. What kind of advice would you give to a buyer if they were thinking about buying into a property that didn't have a builder appointed? Is it a no-go, or what are some things that would give you confidence from their perspective?
Sure. I would be asking the sales team on board or the developer if they're actually in conversations with a builder. Is there an ECI, an early contracts or involvement agreement in place, or is there a letter of intent from a builder? But then ensuring that any developer has existing relationships with builders, I think is crucial. Any project at the moment of scale, obviously with infrastructure projects being so heavily positioned in Brisbane at the moment because of the Olympics, it's extremely hard to get a tier one builder to appointed on any of those scale projects. But yeah, ensuring that there's some level of involvement with a builder and a relationship would be the key component if you're looking at buying into something that doesn't have a builder formally appointed.
Yeah, I think it's that kind of classic thing where it's like, what have they done before? Have they got a track record of delivering great projects?
Correct.
And really, I think if there's no builder appointed, that's really where that research piece really comes into it.
Absolutely. If they don't have builder appointments, how are they actually getting their cost analysis on what the construction element will be? Is that through a QS report, or have they had discussions with a builder? And, do they have the funding behind the project?
One of the things I know for sure is that the more skilled people like yourself out there with Motive, making sure, the right developers are being successful, the right questions are being asked by the consumer, the better the market's going to perform, which is good for the whole ecosystem. So appreciate the great work that you're doing in the industry, and look forward to continue working together.
Thank you. Thanks so much.